Is there a message of necessity at the desk? There is a message of necessity at the desk. Move to accept the message of necessity. The message is accepted.
Hello, welcome to Methods of Necessity podcast by Empire Center. I am Danyela Souza Egorov, and I'm Executive Director of Parent Power New York, a project of the Empire Center to support improvements on school in New York State. And today I'm talking to Art Samuels, founder and executive director of MESA Charter High School in Bushwick, New York City.
Hi, Daniela. It's good to see you.
Good to see you too. So thank you for talking to us. We want to talk to you about the new school that you're opening in New York City, MESA, which is going to be a high school. And but we want to talk because what has allowed this school to open is the Governor Hochul budget from last year that it changed the law here in New York City and allowed us to open 14 new charter schools, right? And one of these schools is going to be the replication of your very successful school in Brooklyn. And so we really just want to talk to you about how did you create the first MESA, and what was the drive between you and your co-founder to create that school?
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you. Yeah, it's very exciting. And I think a crucial part of this is that Governor Hochul really listened to parents. We get caught up a lot in the politics and the union and the advocates, but at the end of the day, this is something that parents want. Parents want choice. They want high quality options for their children. And so the governor was responsive to that. And I think that's really important. In terms of MESA 1, the school that is being replicated, my co-founder, Paji Chung, and I started MESA here in Bushwick in the fall of 2013, actually this summer. We opened on August 19th, 2013, with 126 ninth graders. Over time, MESA has grown to be 500 students in grades 9 through 12. We, at this point, have graduated 7 classes. We're now in our 11th year of instruction. We are one of a fairly small number of standalone charter high schools in New York City, meaning that we are a high school, but it's not the outgrowth of, an elementary school or a K through 8 or a middle school. The main entry point is in 9th grade, although we do accept students in 9th, 12th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grades. When we first opened MESA on August 2013, the graduation rate in our district was 56%.
Wow.
That's just the high school graduation rate. I'm not talking about college readiness. I'm not talking about college acceptance. I am talking about if you walked into a high school building in Bushwick, you had basically a flip of the coin chance of walking out with a diploma in 4 years. And we felt that was just completely unacceptable. There are great families here, as there are everywhere. There are parents here who care deeply about their kids' education. And they were being confronted with a choice that we didn't think any parent should be confronted with, which is they could either send their child out of the district, in many cases out of the borough, commuting an hour and a half away for school, or they could send them to a school that was likely to fail them. And that was just the reality of what parents were confronting. And that's what we heard again and again.
Okay.
And so we started MESA in response to that.
Uh-huh. And you've been planning to replicate this school for many years, but because of the charter cap, you were not allowed. Is that right?
That is correct. So we waited a while to submit our application. We did not want to rush through it. High school is a challenge and is very nuanced, and we wanted to make sure we had it right. So we ran the first MESA school for 5 years. We graduated 2 classes. At this point, with our 7 graduating classes, our aggregate graduation rate is 93%. Wow. 93% of our students graduated in 4 years. And then, the vast majority of them go on to 4-year colleges. Mm-hmm. After 5 years and a full 5-year renewal, we said, okay, we think we've learned enough that we can do this and we can open a second school. And so, yes, in 2019, we applied to open a second MESA high school, and we were approved to open that school. But at that point, the charter cap in New York City had been hit, and so we were not able to open.
Okay. And so the second MESA, where it's going to be located, and how do you think it's going to benefit that community?
So, as you alluded to earlier, fortunately, this past April, the legislature and the governor listened to the voices of parents, and I won't say they raised the cap, they kind of picked it up a tiny little amount just to allow 14 schools to kind of squeak through.
Yeah,
and
I read that actually her first proposal was like 100 charters, and then that was like, okay, no, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, that's correct. Her first proposal, I think, was to completely eliminate this sort of artificial fence between,
Yes.
New York City and the rest of the state, right?
Yes.
But so they did allow for 14 schools to be open, and so we were, since we had already been approved and were in the queue, the SUNY Charter Institute came to us and said, "Do you still want to open your school?" And we said yes. This school will be located in District 20 in New York City, which is Southwest Brooklyn. So that's the neighborhoods of Bay Ridge, southern part of Sunset Park, Dyker Heights, Bensonhurst. And one of the main reasons that we want to be there and that we think this school is needed there and that we've heard from parents is that this is one of the last remaining districts in New York City that only has large comprehensive high schools, and those schools are incredibly overcrowded. But there are only 4 9 through 12 high schools in the district. All of them have over 1,000 students in them. Fort Hamilton, which is one of the biggest high schools in the country, has over 4,000 students in it. Collectively, those 4 schools have nearly 3,000 more students than there are available seats. So each of those schools is bursting at the seams. And so what MESA provides is something that doesn't exist in the district, which is a small, community-centered, intimate, non-selective high school. And it adds 500 badly needed high school seats to that neighborhood.
That's great. And so you mentioned a little bit about the statistics of MESA, but in my research, I found that, for example, on average, only 20% of MESA students are proficient in LA when they come to your school in 9th grade, right? But then 4 years later, 94% are proficient. And in math, the incoming class, again, 21% are proficient in math in 9th grade when they come to you, but then 96 are proficient 4 years later. All the schools, as you said, are going kind of K-12, right? Because we know how much harder it is to achieve proficiency in the later years. And so how is MESA being able to get students who come to you so behind in 9th grade and you don't have any tests, then how are you getting them to achieve proficiency in 4 years?
It's one of those things. What is the saying? There's no 100% solution. There are 101% solutions.
Yes.
And that's really what it is, right? So we try to be incredibly thoughtful and intentional about every single thing we do. We have a different and we think smarter calendar, for example, right? So, I mentioned we opened on August 19th, 2013. That's not an accident that we opened in August. We start earlier. That allows us, now we don't necessarily have a lot more instructional days than the district school, but we can space our days in a way that we think makes a lot more sense and gets more continuous learning without sort of, chopping up the calendar in the way that the DOE does. We are incredibly intentional and patient about building relationships with students. We do home visits with all of our incoming students with IEPs and English language learners. We get to know their parents very, very well. We have built into our staff contracts that every staff member is required to make 2 positive contacts per week. So no matter how difficult your week was, no matter how challenging it was, you got to find 2 kids that did something well, and you've got to call or send a text or send a note or an email or run into them on the street, and you've got to tell their parents, hey, I was so proud of Danyela, the way that she, gave her presentation on the Hammurabi Code. Or I sat there and I watched Arthur really work through this challenging problem in our algebra class, and I know it was tricky for him, and he came to office hours with me, and he really worked on it, and I'm so proud of him. And one of the reasons we think that's really important is that, especially getting kids in ninth grade, a lot of our kids and a lot of our families haven't had particularly positive experiences with school.
Yeah.
And that might, in some cases, and it does in some cases, actually date back generations. So it's not just that the child has had mostly negative experiences with school. A lot of times that child's parents have also had negative experiences with school. Sometimes their grandparents have, and they have
Sometimes at
seen
the same school, right?
a lot of times it can be the same
Yes.
school. Absolutely right. And what happens then is the school becomes this adversarial institution that only communicates when something is wrong. I can't tell you how many times I have heard from a parent, will call to say something positive, and the parent picks up, and the first thing they says, "What do you do this time?" And we say, "Actually, he sat next to a kid in the cafeteria who was sitting by himself." Right? Or actually, he wrote this incredible poem in ELA class. And you can sort of feel the parent on the other end take a beat, and they kind of process and realize what's happening. It's different. And then they'll say, this is the first time I've ever gotten a call like this from my school. Usually the school only calls when the child is failing or when the child is in trouble. And so we build that relationship from day one. And that also then really does enlist parents and partners. That means when the child is struggling, and kids struggle, right? That's part of it. And we call to enlist the parents' help. They don't feel like we're blaming them. We're not calling to report that they have done a bad job. We're saying, hey, we're seeing this. Let's work together. Let's be partners on this. So that's a huge part of it. We incorporate something called standards-based grading. So grading at our school is mastery-based. It's not based on compliance, homework completion, behavior. We have other ways of teaching students habits that will lead to success in life. That's important. Doing your homework is important. Being prepared is important. Behaving in class is important, but it's not the same as mastering content or skills. And students' academic grades are based on their mastery of particular content or skills. And so that enables kids to really hone in on what exactly it is that they don't understand. And then they can go to office hours and extra help with the teachers to drill down on, okay, can you help me with the quadratic equation? Because I'm just not getting this, right? And they can sit there and, the kids' sort of understanding is not, oh, I need to do extra makeup work, right? It's not compliance-based, it's mastery-based. That's also a really important college skill, right? I don't know this thing. Let me go to office hours with the professor to try to learn. And
So you talk about extended year and time. You talk about relationships with families, right? And then differentiated instruction, really focusing on each child, what they need exactly.
And Daniela, I would add that, so there are certain things like the different calendar that we can do because we're a charter school, right?
Yes.
We have that autonomy and that freedom. But 90% of what we do that's effective, anyone can do, right? Being a charter isn't the thing that allows us to build these relationships with parents, right? That's not like the charter school can do that.
Well, but you put that in your contract with your teachers, right? You said.
Sure.
Yes.
But honestly, teachers aren't doing it because it's in their contract, right? They know that
the culture of your school,
right? It's the culture of the school. They sign up because they're excited about that. And then it's really cool on Friday afternoon when the grade team leader sends out an email that says, hey, we still haven't gotten positive context. We pay very close attention to which kids have not yet received a call, right? So, because we don't want anyone to feel left out. We don't want anyone to feel overlooked. And so it's really cool to see all of the teachers on the grade team say, oh, I'll follow up with John. I want to call his mom about this. Or, I saw Jewel did this great thing and I want to call her dad. They want to be a part of that. People like being part of a school that is successful and where there's a lot of positive reinforcement. So you're right that it's in the contract, but it's not the contract that's making that happen.
Yes, for sure. So you have written a lot and talked a lot about the program where your students can earn college credits before graduation, right? So tell us about this program that allow half of your students to graduate already with some college credits.
Yeah, that's correct. so much of what we do is research driven and data driven. And there is a ton of research that shows that students who enter college with a certain number of credits already in the bank are more likely to persist through and graduate from college ultimately, which isn't really surprising, right? If you start climbing a mountain a quarter of the way up, you're more likely to reach the summit than if you start at the very bottom of the mountain.
Yeah.
And for so many of our students who qualify for free and reduced lunch, that's also a huge financial savings. Even if there is financial aid, certain times that doesn't cover things. It's more time that you're out of the workforce, right? It adds up. If you can start basically as a sophomore, you're more likely to persist through. You're taking out less debt. So there's a lot of reasons to do it. In New York City, they have something called the College Now program, which allows students to take classes at CUNY colleges. But there's also research that shows that that type of program is disproportionately utilized by middle and upper income students. That's because the classes take place after school or on weekends. And so a lot of times you're talking about students who don't necessarily have to work on the weekends or don't necessarily have to provide childcare for their families because they have a parent who works at night or on weekends, right? If you have more flexibility in your time and fewer responsibilities, it's easier for you to travel to a CUNY campus to take classes. So we've thought a lot about how can we get students college credit, real college credit, during the school day while we're here and remove some of those barriers to access. One of the programs that we do is we have a lot of our students take something called the CLEP exam, college level equivalent. I don't remember what the P is. I should know this. But it's a test program. Yes, program. The one I always forget. College level equivalency. Thank you. And so a number of our classes are also sort of structured to prepare them for the CLEP exam, which is a college board exam. And if they pass that exam, depending on the score they get a certain number of credits that they can then take to college. We also offer about 10 or 11 different AP classes. That's sort of the most traditional way in which we offer college credit. And if students pass those classes, that pass those exams with a 3 or higher, they can get college credit for that. And then the last thing we do participate in the College Now program. So some students get credit through that. And then the last thing we do is we entered into a partnership last year with St. Francis College, where we aligned our 12th grade math curriculum, which is statistics, and we created a 12th grade writing class that all of our seniors took. We aligned it to the St. Francis freshman math and freshman writing curriculum. And so the kids took the same material that they were going to be taking at St. Francis. Our teachers attended PD with their professors. They connected with their department leaders to make sure that, their department chairs to make sure that everything was aligned. And at the end of the class, the kids take the final exam from St. Francis in either math or writing or both. And if they pass, St. Francis will award them 3 college credits for each of those 2 classes. So that's another way in which every MESA senior has access to up to 6 college credits without ever having to leave the building. They're co-listed with our classes. They're here. It's from teachers they know. So again, you're removing a lot of the institutional barriers that stand in the way of kids getting college credit.
That's a great opportunity for kids for sure. So you have also been super vocal about the problem with New York City youth who finish high school, but then do not enroll in a college and is not having a job, right? And I know MESA is really trying to tackle that problem and offer solutions for the city. So tell us a little bit about how big is the problem, because I was very surprised when I read your articles on that, like how many youth in New York City are not studying nor working. And then how are you guys trying to offer a solution to this problem?
Yeah, it's a massive problem and it probably doesn't get talked about enough. And even folks who are in the field probably don't really understand the scope of it. So according to a report that was put out by Mayor de Blasio's office in his last year in office, up to 25% of young people ages 16 to 24 are at risk of becoming what they call disconnected. It means they are not working, nor are they in school. Now, this doesn't include, students who are working or young people who are working, but are working kind of dead-end minimum wage jobs, right? Part-time fast food or driving Uber Eats or something like that, which is work. It's honest work. It's hard work, but it's not a career. If you,
Yeah.
are really good at working at Chick-fil-A, making $16 an hour, maybe in a year you have a chance to make $16.50, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
no one is renting an apartment in New York City or raising a family on
Yeah.
that, right?
And this is statistics from de Blasio's last year. So this is before COVID.
This is
Probably is
yeah,
worse now.
the statistic, the
Uh-huh.
report was issued in 2021, so we were sort of still in the middle of, all the pandemic
yeah,
there. So
yeah.
it'll lag a couple of years behind.
Mhm.
These young people are disproportionately young men and women of color from lower income backgrounds. But the thing that was most startling about me when I read this report is that 75% of them have a high school diploma. So we are not talking about young people who dropped out of high school when they were 15 years old and now are struggling to regain their footing. We're talking about young people where our system said to them, you are prepared for the next step. We have done our job. And one of the huge challenges that we see is that it's not really clear who's responsible for young people once they graduate from high school. There is a sense that, well, now you're an adult and you need to figure it out. But anyone who's ever talked to an 18-year-old or been an 18-year-old knows that that's not really true. Your brain is still developing. You've never done anything. You don't have any idea. And so we are letting these young people slip through the cracks. There are CUNY schools where the dropout rate is above 80%. So
80%. Wow.
80%. So we are putting all of these young people on the path to college, and the high schools are saying, we did our job,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. You graduated.
But they're going to places and they're not. And look, this is a structural problem because this is how high schools are incentivized and evaluated, right?
Yeah.
On January 22nd, on June 22nd, I give you a diploma and I say, congratulations, you're a MESA graduate. And structurally, on June 23rd, you're not my problem anymore. Now you're someone else's problem. I did my job. I get my points, right?
Yeah.
But that's not how the actual world works. And that's not the promise we made to our families, right? We didn't say to MESA families, send your child to MESA, and in 4 years, we'll give them a diploma and they'll pass 5 Regents exams, right? We said, we are going to prepare you for life and for college and for a career that is financially sustainable and personally meaningful. And that's our commitment. And so several years ago, we said, okay, we need to do more. And that meant a few things. It meant a deep investment in our alumni program and our alumni supports. It meant radically revamping a lot of our curriculum to create more opportunities in the 9th through 12th grade for career-connected learning and exposure to different careers, and most importantly, for internships and opportunities to leave the school, to leave the building, to get external experience out in the world. Because we saw that for a lot of our students, the reason that they struggled when they graduated was they'd spent 4 years in what we call our love bubble, which was a wonderful, supportive, highly curated world for them. But that's not how the world actually is, right? And so the solution was, so the solution wasn't be mean to the kids. The solution was create more opportunities for them to be out of MESA, create opportunities for them to make mistakes and learn and fail that are not fatal, right? That don't have such tremendous consequences, where they can not show up for an internship and have a hard conversation with their boss and learn from that, right? So that they do it when they're 16 and not when they're 21. So one thing we're very proud of is that 46% of MESA seniors at this point have either completed a paid, meaningful corporate internship, or traveled abroad for a summer, or spent a summer in a residential college program outside of New York City. The national rate of internship completion for high school seniors is 2%. Only 2% of high school seniors complete an internship. For MESA, it's nearly half our class. So we're very, very, very proud of that. And we've also built out a workforce development program where we are re-engaging young people. In some cases, we're providing them with marketable digital marketing skills and certifications directly. In other cases, we're helping them reconnect to program partners and workforce development. Last year, we served 41 MESA alumni. This year, we've expanded our program that we call Alumni Lab to serve not only MESA alumni, but young people from about 15 different partner schools and programs, some charter, some district. We work with everybody who is invested in this work. And this year, we're going to serve 100 students.
Wow, that's fantastic. And does that mean that you are also offering options for students who might not go to a four-year college, who want to pursue technical education or a technical career?
Yep, that's correct. So what used to be our college counseling department is now our college and career counseling department. And the focus is still very much on what is going to lead to a financially sustainable, personally meaningful career. So I'll give you an example. We had
not always college, right?
Which is not always college.
Yeah.
And in some cases it is, right?
Yes, for sure.
And in a lot of cases it isn't. So if that's something, ultimately the decision it should be made by the parent and the child, right?
Yeah.
And we are completely supportive and completely respectful of whatever decision they make. We want to make sure our families are armed with as much accurate information as possible in making that decision. So if they say, I want to get a liberal arts degree at this CUNY school, we can say to them, look, if that's what you want to do, you can do that. But you need to understand that one, that CUNY school has a graduation rate of 13%. And two, that liberal arts degree is not really marketable in any way. And those 87% who failed out, it's not because they were bad or they didn't care or they didn't want it. There's a reason that happened. So let's talk about whether that's really the right fit. And in some cases, it's not. So I'll give you an example. We had a student last year who graduated, very, very, very strong student, has always been interested in culinary arts. During her junior year, we helped her get an internship with a local bakery in our neighborhood where she got to work and learn, not just I like to cook at home, but here is what it means to actually be a professional baker, right? Here's what it is to work in a bakery where you are churning out high quality goods for a mass audience, not just, your friends, which is a different thing, right?
Yeah.
You need to work at a different speed. You need to have a different level of replicable accuracy. People are paying for it. So, they might not forgive you that you didn't put enough sugar and you mixed up the salt in this last batch, right? Like that's your cup. So she learned that, she earned money, she got paid. And then last year when she was a senior, she explored a couple of options. She got into Johnson & Wales, but she saw that Johnson & Wales is going to be really, really expensive. Instead, we helped her get into a program that we have a partnership with at the Stanley Isaac Center, which does a culinary arts training program. And then they place you in an internship. And now she's at, she's at a pretty, sort of fancy, I'm trying to remember the name. It's some place in Astoria. It's like a, super hip brunch place, right? Where, you can get an omelet with goat cheese and avocado for, and alfalfa greens for, $19 or whatever. I'm also dating myself, right? Because I don't know exactly that, but it's,
with inflation a little higher.
Yeah,
yes.
right. But it's a really, really, really nice restaurant. And she's enjoying it. Rule of Thirds. That's the name of the place. Rule of Thirds.
Oh, Rule of Thirds. Okay.
So go to Rule of Thirds and look for Abby because she's crushing it there.
Great. Well, thank you so much for talking to us. We really want to highlight the great work that some schools are doing here in New York. And I think, unfortunately, the law is still limiting those schools to really grow and serve as many parents as wanted to enroll in the schools. And I've had the opportunity to do some fellowships and also to work with some of MESA graduates, and I was so impressed with them. So thank you so much, Art, for talking to us.
Thank you, Daniela. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
For more news and analysis, visit our website and sign up for email updates at empirecenter.org. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn at Empire Center.